Well, welcome along to Form Scan here on IrishRacing.com. The Friday of Royal Ascot comes under the microscope now in the very keen and wonderful eyes of Stephen Harris and Johnny Ward, who've been in scintillating form all week. Gentlemen, without further ado, we are going to get straight into the action. No messing around here. The 2:30, the opener is the Albany Stakes Group 3 action, of course. Good luck. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sitting this one out. I'm leaving this to you, Stephen, to take the dance floor with.
Well, I actually really like one here, but I think it is probably one of those races you might be able to have 8 goes and not find the winner. But Jabara, Roger Verin, a yard I really like, and he's flying now. He's 6 winners in the last 14 days. Jabara was unusually strong in the market, 2-1 favourite at Newmarket, first time out back in May. Very unusual for Verin to have one prime first time. Everything went wrong. She dwelt at the start, missed a few lengths. She then took a really keen grip. Then at halfway, she had her run repeatedly checked. And I thought it was a really, really good performance to pick them all up and win. And the form has had a real boost because La Garida, Guardia, finished third, has since won, pulling a bus next time out. I actually fancy La Guardia on Saturday at Royal Ascot.
Right.
But I do think that the bare form is good. And I think Jabara will improve a stone for it with the run under her belt. She'll definitely settle. She'll be a strong stayer at this trip. And I think she'll go really close. David Egan, who's got a good book of rides on the next couple of days at Royal Ascot, is up. And I think she will go really well. 5 or 6-1. I'm not saying it's a fantastic bargain, but I think win only, she'll give you a good run for your money and go really close.
I love it. Drawn is still 18 there. Jabara, 5-1 for the David Egan Roger Verin combination. I suppose half the battle, as it is with races when you're containing so many horses that are unexposed, it's what improvement is there to come, Johnny, from their debut or just their second run and now coming into the cauldron and the atmosphere of this. I suppose you've got the temperament. There's going to be a pretty strong crowd here who've had a couple of diet lemonades, to put it politely. The sun's going to be out. And, on a serious point, it can boil over a few of these fillies in the prelims.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about, you can make the point. There's nothing that's gotten itself right, but things can happen drastically at the off that actually, even before, just as they're going into the stalls, everything can change. So, and as you mentioned, Ed, 2-year-old fillies, could be a hot day. It's a completely new experience pretty much for all of them. I'm going to tip up a horse here that I think, as you're alluding to there, needs to improve. It's Navassa Island. Clearly needs to improve because she was second to Portafortuna first time out at Naas. But if you look at that race, I'd be amazed if she can reverse that form, if not today, going forward, because she was very green. She absolutely flashed home. She's a very, very good as well. She's a half sister to Cheveley Park winner Michael Callahan, earmarked it. As Steve says, massively dogmatic. You've the likes of Jabara in the race. Obviously, Matrica I thought was good first time out. She could have run on Tuesday as well. You've 14 previous winners, I think, in the race. Carla's Way among them. But I do think Michael Callahan's filly must have a very big chance each way.
Interesting. I like that shout. Navassa Island there for Johnny. One arm, as I said, I'm very happy to swerve and go the opposite way. The 305, though, is the Commonwealth Cup Group 1 action now. I can see Little Big Bear going off a very short price here. I think there's still a bit of 6-4 floating around. Can imagine the horse will be going closer to evens by the off. Obviously, the Bradsell win earlier in the week has franked the Haydock form to a large extent. Is there a danger Little Big Bear goes off a little bit too short on the basis of that? Because I am actually with Sakir here at the prices, who I thought shaped like the absolute non-miler of all non-milers in the Guineas, on soft ground, too keen, fell in a hole, and very much did what Little Big Bear did. And Little Big Bear since has obviously had the opportunity to come out and show that he's much happier back at his sprint trip. Sakir hasn't been kept fresh for this. So I just think at the prices, Sakir can get a bit of 9-2. I think that's must bet type of value. Anyway, that's my penny's worth. Stephen, you with Little Big Bear, Sakir, or do you think this could be a bit of a boil over and you're looking for something at a big price?
No, I think you've summed it up very well. You've been bugging my phone, Ed. I think this is one of the best each way bets of the whole 5 days, to be honest with you, Sakir.
Right.
Roger Varian flying. We've already touched on him in the previous race. Egan's booked. You've described it perfectly. I mean, his juvenile form was very progressive, all on fast ground. He looked very, very useful, top class, I thought. And
All speed.
first time out, he was all speed, exactly. A quickener at 6 furlongs, straight up to a mile, ended up on soft ground in the wrong part of the track, getting messed about, didn't stay in the end, did plenty of mid-race running, shaped really well. Now that form's it's not worked out among the principals, but that's neither here nor there for the purposes of dropping back to sprinting. And the one thing I'll say about Little Big Bear is obviously he's first of all he has blown out altogether once he beat the ambulance in the 2000 Guineas. Something went badly wrong there. There were excuses. They fancied him. They backed him down to even money in the nifty 50 at Haydock last time out. But the one thing about that win, Little Big Bear, that was impressive, and the third's one since, as you said, he got the stands rail, and it was a massive advantage at Haydock. So
It was a big draw
I'm
bias
not
that day,
rushing to
wasn't it?
take,
Yeah.
I'm not
Right.
rushing to take short prices about horses who've won with a massive bias in their favour. Also, obviously, trained by Coolmore, Genius, and all the rest of it. I think each way Sakir, you might get 5-1. Absolutely top bet, one of the best bets of the week.
Right, you've tipped up my confidence levels, just gradually going up. That's good. That's what I was trying to say. But essentially, yeah, Matt. Well, so 2 nods for Sakir. Johnny, where are we going?
Yeah, I actually couldn't disagree more on Sakir in the sense that you're completely speculating that he's trained on, because Zoffany wouldn't be a stallion I'd be a big fan of, and obviously he shaped okay in the Guineas, but ultimately he was well beaten, so he has to effectively. I mean, Little Big Bear obviously bombed in the Guineas, but he has to prove that he's trained on, and Little Big Bear has definitely trained on. I was speaking to you lads at the first day about Aidan O'Brien, the stallions that he might have this year, and on day one he has the winner of the Coventry, and then he has Paddington, and these are horses that they're not on the Galileo side of things, so are going to be very exciting going forward. Little Big Bear is really exciting as well because he's by no nay never, and he doesn't have the Galileo in him, so he can go to all these Galileo bred mares. He's not only precocious, but he's very big as well, and obviously I think it was just that the mile wasn't for him at Newmarket. Maybe there are other excuses. Other than that, he's been absolutely flawless. He's rated 124, 6-4. I would take 4-1 on. He goes off shorter than 6-4, and I'd be thinking he probably goes off. I think he goes off evens or shorter, and I really can't see him being beaten here. He's absolutely flawless.
Right, love it. I love it. Big split of opinion here, but this is great. So essentially, though, after all the chit chat, it's between the top 2 in the market. We're not looking for a triple time up the opener like we saw on Tuesday, did we? With absolute carnage in the Queen Anne. So no, between the protagonists here, Little Big Bear for Johnny and myself and Stephen with Sakir as the value play. Where are we moving on to now? Onto the onto the 340. My screen's just frozen in front of me. Is it the Duke of Edinburgh Stakes, isn't it? Over 1.5 miles. Again, fiercely competitive action here. Stephen, can you lead us the way here?
I think this is extremely difficult. I mean, it's at least 6-1 the field. I think the weights. It's a difficult race to have an opinion on form-wise because the favourite Al Nafir hasn't run for 250 days. The one I like, Nagano, hasn't run for 664 days. But I think Varian's very upbeat. He's fit well. He's been laid out.
Why do you like him? Why do you like?
His form is very good. When he last ran 2 years ago, he did get beat at 11:08 on at Goodwood in a Group 3 in the March Stakes, but he got turned over by Dancing King there. He's one of those Johnson horses at Goodwood that made all the running, and Nagano missed the break completely and did really well to land a blow of any description, beaten ahead. And I think he's got plenty of upside in handicaps from this sort of mark. He's been given a bit of a chance, and I think he's bound to be 100% fit. Again, David Egan's up. I think I'm going through the card with David Egan. We might have to buy him on the spreads or something to try and make it pay. But Varian and Egan have got a brilliant book of rides today, and a token selection. You're half guessing. He hasn't run for nearly 2 years, but you'd be surprised if he wasn't fit. And he's definitely got upside in handicaps from this kind of mark.
Yep, absolutely. And in terms, I was looking at the others here, Johnny. Joseph O'Brien, representatives in here. And Ryan Moore riding Akita Sushi. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah, and I think Joseph's booked Ryan for a couple of horses sort of later on in the week as well, quite early. And this is a really interesting horse. I actually backed him last year. He ran in the Copper House Stakes. That's the 1 and 6 race that we have on the Tuesday. And he was quite an eye catcher on the day behind Cleveland. He was well out of his ground. Now, the only thing you'd say is on the day, you're like, this horse is going to be like a Gold Cup horse in time. He looked like he really wanted a trip. Subsequently, he hacked up over 2 miles at Dundalk. That was his first run of the season. I imagine sort of this has been, at least, if not his main target all season, one of the main targets, because he does have a little bit of unfinished business. Really interesting that he comes back to 1.5 miles here, because I imagine they could have had other options, but he's a lovely draw 9. I think he's 14-1. I mean, he's running off. What is he running off? He's running off the same mark or even
102,
slightly
yeah.
lower than last year. Yeah, so he's a lovely horse, like really straightforward horse, stays well. Ryan Moore in the plate. I couldn't put you off at 14-1. I think he's going to run big at the very least.
Yeah, fascinating. I do like it. Just a musing little anecdote here. I just thought 2 Messiah Fox is on a hat trick, but I don't particularly fancy the horse in this grade. But does anyone know in Greek mythology who the 2 Messiah Fox was? I know, Johnny, that's your kind of bedtime reading, is it?
No, well, there we go.
It was the fox that could never be defeated. I thought that's a brilliant name for a horse.
That is a good
never
name.
lose. Can never lose. It was never defeated.
You know what my next horse is going to be called? It's going to be a 2-year-old, because I'll be able to name it myself, and because of all my litany of failures with horses, it's going to be called Deja Vu all over again, and it just fits into 18 characters.
Oh,
There we go.
good.
You got it. You got it, Suss. You've just got this game, Suss, Johnny. I like
There
it.
we go,
Anyway, we're not talking about failures. We're talking about positive, upbeat winners for the Coronation Stakes at 420. Now, obviously, this race and the spectacle of it has been dealt a huge blow with Morge scoping badly. An unsatisfactory scope, the official line from Sai Bin Saror's classic winner. Obviously, it's a shame we're not going to see the 1,000 guineas winner here. Which does it present an open goal, Johnny, to Tahira, or do you think there's some potential banana skin going on here we're not seeing?
I don't really. I think Dermot Well has been saying all along he wanted he wanted her to have a little bit more time between the guineas, the 2 guineas. He wanted a bit more time. He wanted the race to come a little bit later at the Curragh. Unless he's bullshitting, this implies that the horse should be improving a bit. I know she only beat Meditate by 1.5 lengths, but she was all over her. She travelled all over her. It was just a question of whether she'd get out or not. As you mentioned, Mauge don't run. She's the only horse that can beat her really on form, I think. But the problem is obviously you're going to get 4-7. So I'm really looking forward to watching her. I likely won't have a bet in the race, but I think she's an exceptional filly.
Yeah. No bet race for you, Stephen?
Well, it depends on the prices, doesn't it? Everything's price related, isn't it? I think if you've got sort of 4 to 5, I'd want to be on. I don't think Meditate's got much chance of reversing the form, but Meditate had the run of things, and Tahira did not. I mean, she had to wait for her gap and then quicken pretty impressively. And I thought she was a bit unlucky in our guineas, to be honest. She didn't break that well and did well to get in a blow at all. I think Dermot Well's been quiet, Johnny, hasn't he? I mean, just looking back the last fortnight, he's only had 11 runners. Now, I know there hasn't been loads of racing in Ireland, but you'd have probably thought, I mean, I would imagine Aidan O'Brien's probably had 100, I mean, he's only had 11 runners. He's had 1 winner. So what he's running, there's nothing much wrong with him. But I don't know whether
the only thing I'd say is, Steve, when she ran at Newmarket, he was having, like, his stats were absolutely pants earlier this season, like really poor. And she was it didn't matter a jot to her. So it wouldn't worry me in that regard anyway.
No. I thought she'd probably win. I mean, if you got 4 to 5 about her, I'll be with her, I think.
Right. Yeah. So price dependent. Wait to the day. Wait to the off. In regards to the here, as you say, maybe the bookmakers might try and dangle the carrot and gift horse and mouth and all that jazz. But right, moving on to the 5 o'clock. It's the Sandringham, the straight mile, class 2 action for the fillies, rated 0 to 105. Copice. Winner last time out, Frankie Dettori, John and Thady Gosden, around your 4-1 market leader or thereabouts. Wide open spectacle again. Unknown draw biases, etc., etc. I won't bother with all the platitudes, but is there an angle in here for you, Stephen, for this one?
I've just found a sort of random one here who I might be completely wrong about. Polly Pot. I like Billy Lockney. He's only a kid, but he's a brilliant jockey. He's losing his claim too quickly. That's the only problem with Lockney. You can still claim 3, but that won't last much longer. And then it's a funny time for jockeys when that happens, isn't it? Sometimes they lose a lot of the rides that they were getting because they were claiming. But he's very talented, very level-headed, and he's a very strong and good jockey. Polly Pot has run 2 races so far this season and had no chance in either. On the 7th of May, behind Morge in the Guineas, soft ground, no use at all, tailed off. And then last time out, 1 mile 2, behind Warm Heart and Blue Stocking, which is good form, I think. Pulled like a train, dropped out in last and then didn't stay. So ended up being
Yeah.
well beaten. Much quicker ground here. Um, Back to a mile, into handicaps. I think she's got a generous rating
Yeah.
because of those 2 duck eggs. She's about 25 to 1. Lock Nane up, takes off £3. She'll settle in this
Yeah.
300 runner handicap. And I think she can pick them off late with any luck in running. But again,
It's
you
Yeah.
can't pretend it's a
Yeah.
fantastic shape to have a bet in unless you can
Yeah.
get 6, 7, 8 places.
It's funny you mentioned that horse because I
Yeah.
was going to reference this race in relation to how I kind of Royal Ascot. I actually prefer to Cheltenham these days. I don't know what it is. It's just like every single race has something. And if you look at Polly Pop was obviously trained for this season anyway by Ben Pauling, which is completely
Yeah.
Yeah, I
mad.
Just
saw
down the
Started
road
that.
off
from me. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
started off rated 68, beats 3 horses in Nottingham, and now goes into this rated 100, went up to 104. But the reason I was going to say was because Jackie O is basically a classic horse coming into a handicap here, which is the same thing. And this is the thing that we've gotten in Cheltenham, where you had like the likes of State Man running handicaps because Willie's trying to keep his horse apart. But for some reason, it's actually kind of something that you want to see in Ascot, because Aidan has so many horses anyway that he runs Jackie O, who, as you may know, is by Galileo out of Jacqueline Quest, and we all remember Jacqueline Quest and the Guineas. It's an amazing pedigree. You watch back that run at the Curragh behind Tahira. Kevin Blake spoke about this yesterday on ITV, just about, or rather on Sky Sports Racing, just about how tight they ride in classics at the Curragh. And this was what happened with Jackie O, in the sense that when she came out of the gates under Shamie Heffernan the last day, she was squeezed from both sides, so she had to be snatched back. It was only her third
Yeah.
ever run, and she was dropping back in trip, and she stayed on really well. It was actually a really good run, beating like 5 lengths thereabouts. You can upgrade that to maybe a 3-length defeat, something like that.
Yeah.
She's bred to improve, and she's run off 102. What's not to like?
Yeah, interesting point you make there. Yeah, the official line from Shamie Heffernan to the stewards reported the filly got squeezed for room after a furlong, and pretty much that was that in the official explanation. So yeah, 2 class droppers. You're right. Yeah, Polly Potts was with Harry Dunlop, of course. Went to Ben Pauling's, left Ben Pauling, now with Ed Dunlop and that yard having somewhat of a renaissance this season, operating at around 25% strike rate for June. So we've got that tricky assignment sussed. On to the 5:35, the King Edward Stakes. Now, King of Steel's in here, isn't he? And I imagine, he's not, yeah, he is in here. He's 7-4 market leader. Arrest 6-1, Continuous 8s, Artistic Star 14s, Dubai Mile 25s, Relentless Voyager 33s. I mean, King of Steel, Stephen, if you're taking the classic form behind Auguste Rodin on face value, I mean, 7-4 is generous for a horse who's beaten half a length in the Derby, is it not?
I think he's a prime bounce candidate, Ed, isn't
Okay.
he? It was a huge layoff before he returned to Epsom. He had a very hard race. Now, I mean, David Egan thinks he probably should have won. Kevin Stott, beg your pardon, I got David Egan on the brain. Kevin Stott thought, he thought he should have won. He thought he did it too much too soon and got picked off. I don't agree with that. I think the best horse won on the day. He quickened twice and saw him off. But, second run back, very worried about the quick turnaround. Now, one thing to say, there's only 6 runners here somehow.
Yeah.
How they've ended up with 6 runners for £250,000. I can't believe, but I think King of Steel will probably be quite a lot shorter. Those prices you quoted are probably a bit out of date. I'd have thought he'd be nearer 5-4 and sort of 4-1 bar with
Right.
all the horses have been taken out. But I want to be against King of Steel. I was going to see what Johnny made of the Aidan O'Brien horse, Continuous. I haven't seen his run at Chantilly last time out, but I thought he ran really well behind the Foxes at York. I mean, that form's taken a few
In the
knocks, but
Dante.
he did
Yeah.
run well. He wasn't overly fancied. I think it was quite a big 8-1. Went for O'Brien at York. He was a pretty big price. Maybe he needed to run first time out. He ran really well. If he gets back to that level of form, I think he's a big runner. I think my move, I suspect I'll just be laying the favourite.
And Johnny, for yourself?
Yeah, it's a tough one to call this, because King of Steel, I don't necessarily think he'll bounce. I just wonder, was there something a little bit flattering about Epsom? Did he get the run of the race? He was very
Yeah.
genuine. He did nothing wrong whatsoever. He was just run down by Gus Rodin. He was about 4 or 5 lengths clear of everything else. And these are horses that are all going to rock up in the Irish Derby. These are all considered, it's good form. The 2 Irish horses in behind are rock solid. He was 66-1, and I know he was having his first start for the yard. Was there a bit of a fluke in it? But But then you have Arrest, who I think Arrest was, and may still go to the Irish Derby. He was sent off 4-1 and absolutely flopped at Epsom. So you're wondering, he obviously, I think he lost a shoe and he had a few excuses. But prior to that, he'd done nothing wrong. If there's a little bit of an ease in the ground, I think he might bounce back the way John Goslin's horse are running. Now, as we were saying about some of the prices, he has come in a bit, but I'd probably come in with the Rest. I don't get the impression Continuous is anywhere near their top sort of middle distance horses. The fact that he was sent off 6-1 at York might attest to that, but I'd probably go with the Rest if he doesn't boil over beforehand and all that, and if he's behaving himself. He was 4s at Epsom, and the runner up was 66s.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Arrest, Fisher Light sweated up beforehand, lost a shoe, and I think it was reported as well would prefer an easier surface. So they got the whole book of excuses in after the Epsom run, but I do take Johnny's point. Before that Epsom flop had looked a progressive individual. Right, the finale of the Friday, the Palace of Holyrood Stakes, 5 furlong, the Calvary Charge. See you later, Alligator. Do we have a fancy in here, Johnny?
I'm just going through these now. My brain is actually gone. I'm not even sure I do have a fancy here. I might actually, I might leave this to Steve. I'm going to be in the bar at this stage.
Right, Johnny's brain, quote, has gone. Stephen, the 6-10. I mean, crikey. What a race to try and you get out of jail stakes. Well, I'm staying in jail and the key's gone, I think.
Yeah, you don't want to be in trouble coming into this, do you? It's a bit like... No. The last day at Cheltenham, and it was used to be the Grand Annual, used to be sort of 25 runners over 2 miles, and this is about 300 runners over 5 furlongs. I mean, two or 3 points. Watch the earlier races, because there could well be a draw bias by 6:10 on a Friday. It might be impossible to win one side or t'other.
Yeah.
There's been money for one horse, Conquistador, who we haven't seen for 3 months. George Bowie would know the time of day that when there's money for their horses, particularly in these handicaps, they're not far away. Hasn't been seen for 90 days. A dual all-weather winner. Very, very hard to assess. If you had your eyes shut, you're trying to price it up. Probably one of the 20-1 chances. But it's been double figures now, 6-1. So that one's interesting. But I thought the one who's drawn 29. So look for high numbers being all right. Frankness. Now, Andrew Balding tried to make her into a miler last season. She didn't stay. They dropped her right back. She had a few sighters this season to get fit, and it was pounds, shillings and pence job at Goodwood last time out, 7-4 favourite in a little small field handicap, and she had the race won at halfway over 6. She was really impressive. She's gone up £5 for that. Don't think that's neither here nor there with an informed progressive sprinter. Back to 5 furlongs, a fast run race. Hopefully there'll be loads of pace on that far side, and Harry Davis, a really good £3 claimer's up. Taking off 3, obviously, and I think she'll go close. She's 12-1 again, repeating myself. But look for extra play. I think you might need a lot of extra places here. But that being said, I'll tell you where extra places are fantastic. Johnny was touched on this earlier. If there's a draw bias and there's 6 places, absolute bloody back 10 of them drawn from sort of 20 to 30. You've got them absolutely by the short and curlies play each way in those races. If you've got accounts you can get on, make the most of it.
Exactly. Yeah, good advice there from Stephen. That finale at 6:10, an absolute minefield. But Frankness, each way to play at around 12-1 at the moment. Right, very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, Stephen, Nap and next best, please, for Friday at Royal Ascot.
Yeah, this is one where we all disagree. Ed and I disagree with Johnny. 305, Sakir, 9-2, 5-1, each way. A really good each way bet against a vulnerable favourite, in my opinion. And also Roger Verin again in the 230, Jabara. I was so impressed with her Newmarket debut. Everything went wrong and she still won. The third's won since. I think she'll take plenty of stopping in the opener.
Wonderful scenes. And Johnny, for yourself.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned Wallbank as well running the last. I remember all the fancy behind him last year. He's changed yards, This will be interesting. Well, second in the Norfolk last year. He obviously is a little bit to prove off the last one, but running off 100 blinkers, that'll be interesting. Okay, so my nap, of course, is as you have just alluded to there. My nap is Little Big Bear in the Commonwealth Cup, and my next best, and I will be very strong on this, is Jackie O in the Sandringham.
Wonderful, love it. I'm with Sakir, and I'm yet to find an each way play. Powder dry for now. Would be my angle in. But my thanks to Johnny for all his input, and of course to Stephen as well, providing their best bets for Friday of Royal Ascot. My thanks for you for watching at home. Stay tuned to irishracing.com for all the latest news, views and features. and join us again very soon as we will be previewing the Saturday, the final day of Royal Ascot. Bye for now.